morning, Danny.
Good morning, Danny.
Good morning, Danny. Good morning!
And I'm Dan Neaverth, KB Radio Music. Got up bright and early this morning just to be the first kid on the block to say good morning to you.
Good morning from the cast of the Dan Neaverth Wake Up Hour on KB.
Don't you know we love you, Danny?
Everybody move to Danny.
Danny gets you up the KB way.
Morning, y'all.
I'm not some big shot from radio and television, okay? I'm Dan Neaverth from number 8 Keppel Street, South Buffalo. Very humble beginnings, really. As a matter of fact, we never owned a house on Keppel Street. Grew up there as an only child. And the nuns at St. Monica's, because I was an only child and every other family had 6 to 12 kids, they thought I was spoiled. If you're an only child, you have everything. I had none of that, okay? My dad worked in a bank when bankers didn't make very much money. He never had a car. He got on the bus to go downtown to work at the bank, M&T Bank. My parents were very, very proud of me. I'd hear it from people on the street, people I'd meet at banquets somewhere, people that I'd meet at church, and they say, "Oh, they're so proud of you." But the problem is this: they never told me how proud they were. My first idea about being in broadcasting really wasn't about being a disc jockey, because I was quite young at the time, and we were listening to radio broadcasts, and there were certain things that I would hear that really, really piqued my interest and excited me. I would listen to Jack Benny.
Oh, say, Mr. Benny.
Now what?
Can I have your permission to do a guest spot tomorrow on a dramatic program?
Dramatic program? What's the name of it?
The Mean Old Man.
And Jonathan Winters was another one who was really kind of an idol to me, because he could do all these crazy voices.
Toro, aquí.
And people later on would say, "Boy, Dan, you're so unusual, you're so unique." What I did was I picked and choose from various things that really interested me, put them all together, and doing it myself. We had a little radio station in the Boys Club of Buffalo on Babcock Street, and we built it ourselves. It was Danny McBride, myself, Joey Reynolds. We even had a commercial. We had Vi and Emil's Casa de Pizza. We would run this commercial, and at the end of the week, they would give us a pizza. And, you know, with 5 guys, the pizza went pretty quick. The big payoff for us was we played records, and we were disc jockeys. Wow, okay, we loved that. So I went home one day and made the big announcement to my mother and father. I said, "I have something very important to tell you." And my father said, "You're pregnant?" I said, "No, he didn't say that. My father didn't say that." Okay, but I just thought I'd throw that in. And so I said, "I'd like to be in broadcasting." And they said, "Okay, we got to go to college for that." And I said, "Well, my grades aren't that great, and I'm not the smartest guy at Bishop Diamond High School." I went downtown to WWOL, and I was talking to Bruce Bradley, who was the Guy King at the time, and I said, I'd like to get into broadcasting, but I don't think I'd go to college. He said, "Well, I didn't go to college either." He said, "I went to the Curran Studios in Syracuse." So I wrote a letter to Jack Curran, who owned the Curran Studios, and told him I was interested. And so eventually I went there. So years later, people would say, "Dan, where'd you go to school?" And I would say, "Syracuse." Now, they would assume that I meant Syracuse University. I never said that. I just said Syracuse. I've never been on the campus at Syracuse University. But whatever they wanted to think, I wasn't going to stop them. My dad We got in the car, took me to 6 or 7 different radio stations. Went to Hornell, went to Jamestown. We went to 2 or 3 other places, small town radio stations. And I ended up, strangely enough, one that I had never gone to, in Coudersport, Pennsylvania. So I went to Coudersport with my dad, talked to him, and they hired me. And that was the beginning of the career in Coudersport. It was a learning experience. I wasn't nervous at all. Now, remember, I've never been on the radio at that point. But I just felt confident, not cocky, not being arrogant, just confident, felt comfortable. Because then I realized that I was going to be a disc jockey, I was going to read the news, I was going to be an announcer and entertainer on the Allegheny Mountain Jamboree on WFRM, a farm and home broadcasting company. From Coudersport, I went to WFCB in Dunkirk, New York. I went to work for Ollie Schmidt. Ollie Schmidt was a wonderful owner. He was a little strange at times. I was the last voice heard on WFCB. We decided we weren't making enough money, so we formed a union. And during negotiations, things weren't going anywhere, so we went on strike. So the strike was supposed to start at 6 o'clock at night, and normally I would read the 6 o'clock newscast before I would play music after the news. So you did a little bit of everything. So here's what happened. Just before 6 o'clock, WFCB, Dunkirk, New York. Stay tuned for the 6 o'clock news. Out of the station. Never set foot in the station again. Right after Dunkirk and being on strike, I needed to find another job. And this was fortunately in Buffalo at WBNY. And we were playing what they called, at the time, they had so many commercials, they played mini tunes. Now a mini tune was a record, usually an instrumental, sometimes a vocal, of a hit record. They would cover it, but it would only last 1 minute and 2 or 1 minute and 10 seconds, okay? And they would play these songs because they had so many commercials. They decided we're going to try something different. So they sent Don Chrissy, who worked at the station, they sent him to Omaha, Nebraska to listen to this station out there that had this new concept.
KOWH in Omaha.
They played only 40 songs total, but they were all hit records. And so he was out there for 3 or 4 days, and he came back with some tapes of the station. And that's when they decided we were going to go top 40. WBNY became the first pop music station. This went on for maybe 2 or 3 months, and they hired a program director by the name of Dick Lawrence. And Dick Lawrence came in, and we did record hops, and we're doing a lot of different things. But like so many people during that era, if you have a chance to make $20 more a week at a different station, you'd take it. So I decided I was going to go to WKBW. This was before they were playing Top 40. Dick Lawrence was very upset with me for leaving. And strangely enough, and it was a horrific thing, he ends up being the new program director at WKBW, where I'm working. Hated me, absolutely hated me. And just about that time, I was getting ready to be married. And so we did get married and go away on a honeymoon. And we came back. He called me into his office and he said, I don't want you doing any stuff other than time and temperature. So I decided, I'm not going to do that. So I started doing my shtick.
Hi, this is the old daffy one, your friend Dan Neaverth, right here at the top of everybody's radio dial, WKBW.
And he came in and he's swearing at the top of his voice at me. And he said, you're going down to the owner's office right now. So I go down to the owner's office, who happened to be Dr. Clinton Churchill. He was the pastor of and the owner of Churchill Tabernacle, and he did a radio show, a religious radio show. He was sitting behind his desk. So he said to me, "Young man, you're being insubordinate, and you will listen to whatever the program director tells you to do, you will do." And I said, "And he cannot call me what he called me. He called me and then I filled in all the obscenities that he had screamed at me. Dr. Churchill, "You can't talk that way in front of a man of God." And I said, "And he can't talk that way to me." So he said, give him another position. So I said, "What is the position, Dr. Churchill?" And he said, "Make him a newsman."
This is Dan Neaverth with the final report of the day from Shirkston, Ontario. As midnight approaches, the youngster disappeared at 5:30 yesterday afternoon.
I realized that my time at KB Radio was coming to an end, and I should leave. I wasn't forced to leave because I had a contract there, but I decided it's time to go. So I went to WGR, which was a pretty good station. They didn't have great ratings, but they had a tremendous staff of people, including a name you're probably still familiar with, John Otto. And so I went to the station, had a decent salary, had fun working there, good people. But on the day that I realized that we were going to have our very first child, Dan Jr., they took an hour away from my show. And that was very costly because our salaries were based on how many hours we worked. So at that point, I realized it was time to move again. And where am I going to go? In Buffalo, there didn't seem to be anything else that was, going to pop up. So I applied at WNDR in Syracuse, New York. It was one of the top stations there. So they accepted me, and they said, "Yeah, come on down. You're going to be our morning guy." And that was a pretty good position. So the day that I was scheduled to leave for Syracuse, I got a call from Clint Churchill Jr., who had now taken over the reins at KB Radio. And he said, "You know what? I was going to ask you to come back to the station, but he said, I read in the paper that you're leaving and you're going to Syracuse." Wait. Maybe I could work something out. He said, "Well, if you can, let's see what happens here." So I called the program director at WNDR and I said to him, "If I come there, it may cost my marriage because my wife is very close to the family and all her friends are here, and I feel that I can't do this." And he said, "All right, I understand. We've already started promoting that you're coming here, but can you come down for at least a week and we'll make up a story that, they won't know you went to Hollywood or you got a huge offer somewhere else." So I said, "Yeah, I could do that."
And you're listening to the Friday number 6 of October 1961 edition of the Dan Neaverth Show.
I was there Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and on Thursday morning after the show, the program director called me in and he said, "We realize you're not happy, and why don't you can go now." So I said, "Oh, okay, beautiful, I really appreciate that." Now I'm thinking, there's no way that they're going to pay me for doing a week here or pay me for even doing 4 or 5 days. So strangely enough, they gave me a check and paid me for the entire week. I went back to KB, and I sometimes wonder what would have happened if that whole scenario hadn't unfolded the way it did. It's amazing. I'm glad I did come back because this is home.
When the moonlight goes by and the sun cracks the sky, that's a Danny.
He's always been Dad. He's never been Dan Neaverth, Daffy Dan, Danny moves your fanny Dan. He's always been Dad.
Dad was never a braggart. Dad was never cocky. Nothing more important than his kids.
He really didn't want anyone to pursue a career in radio. That was his thing. He had to work 4 hours a day. he struggled, you know. It's not normal, and he'd come home tired.
Family is first, and that's probably what strikes you the most. He's fun, he's silly, and but serious at the same time.
He'll do anything to get somebody to laugh. He's funny. He's a clown.
He is cheap, although he's less cheap than he used to be, I'll tell you that. No question about it.
Excuse me, but you see, in the land of KB, that's a Danny.
A lot of memories in this building. This was a barn at one time, and they changed it around and fixed it up. It was okay, but it wasn't anything spectacular. 1430 Main Street. Wow. Whoa, they still have the same rug. That's a sign.
So here we are, 1430 Main Street, and in the history of American broadcasting, this is one of the most legendary addresses, the home of WKBW Radio.
Right over there, program director's office. It's right there. And then on this side, general manager in here. We had a meeting one time, and the whole staff, and Tommy Shannon was working at KB at the time. He had come back after working in Detroit for a long time. We're all in this meeting, and Tommy stands up and he said, I really probably shouldn't be at this meeting. And everybody's, what do you mean? The general manager sitting there, the program director, all the other disc jockeys. I shouldn't be here because I'm taking a job at WGR. I shouldn't hear the plans that you have for the future because I'm going somewhere else. Herb Mendelson was the general manager, and I made this production at home with reel-to-reel tape, putting records on a turntable and trying to pick out music. And I did this thing where I went into his office singing how I wanted to get a raise. I needed to get a raise.
There is nothing like a raise, nothing in the world. You can keep your lavish praise, just give Danny Boy here a raise.
And so I played it for him, and he said, oh, that's really neat. And I go back to do my show, and I'm thinking, I don't know if he was impressed or not, if I'm going to get a raise. So during my show, he comes walking back, and he said, did you see this memo? I said, no, what is it? He hands it to me. It's, Herb Mendelson is leaving WKBW to go to ABC in New York. And, so I spent all that time, okay. So then he walked over to the door, and as he opened the door, he looked back in and he said, oh, by the way, before I leave, you got the raise.
This is where the magic was made, in the back of the building.
The magic, yeah. There's where the magic was made. And oh my goodness, this is something. God, this is it. This is where the studio was, and the control room was over here. In this room, like you said before, this is where the magic happened. I don't know as we even thought of it like that. I really don't. Because we each had our own presentation, the way we did things, and we did some things that even with Top 40 Radio were different. Joey Reynolds and myself used to do a changeover every night, okay? So I would finish my afternoon show, and Joey comes on at 7 o'clock, and we would just start talking.
It's all over, Reynolds. I mean, if you can't be at peace with the world, then what will ever happen to our friendship?
Oh, no, I can't see it. I'm heartbroken.
And program directors would go, oh my God, okay, but you can't talk that long. This is a top 40 station. You gotta play the music, okay? We'll play the music in 15 minutes, okay? When we're done talking.
If you ask the program director, what did those guys do last night? He'd say, I don't know, I try to not listen.
People ask me about rats in my room. Where did that come from? It's really a strange thing. In listening to Joey's show one night, I heard him play a song by an operatic singer. At least she thought she was an operatic singer. One of the songs in one of the albums was Rats in My Room. I am bothered by those rats
in my room.
It was so terrible that Joey played it, and it was funny, all right? So I said, Joey, why don't we make a record like that? So he said, yeah, okay, let's do it. So you know where we did it? We did it on McKinley Parkway in a basement that belonged to Tommy Shannon. He had a recording studio in his basement. That's where we recorded Rats in My Room.
Rats in my room. I am bothered by those rats in my room. By those dirty little rats in my room.
It was a stupid song, but I remember this because, as Sandy Beach would tell you, I'm cheap. I could not wait until we got our first check for that song because you had to become a BMI songwriter. The first check that arrived with my name on it, $80. Wow. And I'm thinking, $80? I'm going to get $80 every month for the rest of my life. So next month I run out to the mailbox and there's a check. And the check is for $40. And a note that said, until your account equals $80, we will not be sending any more checks. That was it. No more checks. There was a woman who would come into the radio station at night and clean. She was the cleaning woman. And she had a long Polish name, which we didn't know how to pronounce. So Joey Reynolds and myself referred to her as the Polish cleaning lady.
There was always something, and we referred to everything around us. That's what Danny came up with. Whatever was going on was going to be on the air.
Now, she had absolutely no idea what we were doing on the radio. She turned up missing for a couple of weeks, and when she finally came back, it was on my show, and she walked in, and I said, "Where have you been? Have you been on vacation? We haven't seen you in 2 weeks. What happened? What's going on?" And she said, "My husband died." That was live on the radio. What do you say when somebody says that to you and you realize, wow, I should have been a little more careful with that? When Sandy Beach came here, he was warned by the people he worked with in New England, don't believe anything Dan Neaverth said. He's gonna put you on, and he's gonna give you a rough time and everything. So he was prepared, all right?
The day before I'm actually going to go on the air, and I'm in the recording studio. In the side door is a window.
So I happen to come by,
and I look over there because I see some motion.
I looked in and I go, hey. So he goes, God, come on in.
I don't even know who it is. Okay, so the door opens. In walks a person who says, "Hi, I'm Dan Neaverth. I'm gay." And now, I knew it. The bells went off immediately. So I grabbed him by the ears. I swear to you, his ears. I had his ears in my hands, and I said, "Well, I'm Sandy Beach. That's great, because so am I." That was our meeting. We've been friends ever since, and I've learned he's not gay. Just for those of you keeping score, but I think he is trans. But that's okay. I'm not sure.
The program directors that I worked for at WKBW, I got along with most of them, with one exception, for a short period of time, and that was Sandy Beach, who coincidentally is one of my best friends. My son Dan did the sports on my morning program, and he came right out of college, and Sandy hired him to be the sports guy. And he was there for a while, and then all of a sudden the general manager decided that it wasn't a good idea for family members to work together. So Sandy called me in and fired my son in front of me.
The mistake I made, and it was a mistake, I recognize that now. When I did it, I had both of them in the office because I wanted Dan to see how regretful I was that we had to do it.
I feel bad that I think some people might look back at that firing at KB when I was all of like 19 years old, and I don't really give that much thought at all. And I wasn't the only one that they had to let go. I mean, it was the nature of the beast, and I certainly didn't try and kid myself that I was an important cog in a 50,000 watt powerhouse.
And we had a little time where our relationship was cool. It's the only time in the 50 years that I've known him, and my only regret is having to do that. That's pretty good.
But the irony of that was that later, when Sandy left the station to go to WHTT, he took Dan Jr. with him as his sports guy. So they were competing against me in the morning.
It was a very unique experience growing up with my dad. I remember from the time I was in kindergarten to college, people would normally say, when I would say something, they'd say, "What is wrong with you?" And I would say, "If you grew up at 6132 Ward Road, you would get it."
Well, I think the one thing that they don't know, and he's done a pretty good job of hiding it over the years, is the fact that my brother Dave, Darren, and Dean were actually adopted.
By the time I came along, being the fourth boy, I think he was all out of steam with the discipline stuff. So when you have an older brother that is like perfect, everybody else after that is not.
People often ask me about the characters that I had on my shows at WKBW Radio. The morning show would not be able to support these characters today because they would be considered too controversial. We had the engaged woman. The engaged woman, "Well, don't touch me, I'm an engaged woman." Where did that come from? It came from one of the secretaries at WKBW. I walked in one day and I slapped her on the back like this and I said, "Yeah, how you doing today?" And she said, "Don't touch me, I'm an engaged woman." Okay? But the one main character was the guy that I always took advantage of. He was the guy that had to do all the dirty work for me, and that was Artie.
Artie.
Who is this?
Artie, this is Rick Azar.
Mr. Azar!
How are you?
Oh, boy, I'm fine.
The reason I did these characters is because I was all alone in the studio, and I like to play off of people. I used to use a couple of phrases like first kid out the block to say good morning to you, looking at you through the hole in the record.
Hey, this is Dan Neaverth, KB Radio Music. I got up bright and early this morning just to be the first kid on the block to say good morning to you.
Good morning, Danny.
I remember hearing a disc jockey in New York City, and he signed off his show something like this. He said, "We'll see you tomorrow. This is the curly-headed kid in the second row, right here on WOR in New York." And I thought, the curly-headed kid in the second row. That's kind of like an identifier. I don't even know if he has curly hair, and he's probably not sitting in the second row, but that's cool. I like stuff like that. So I'm going to come up with something like that, but not that, okay? So that's pretty much the way it happened. I would hear things from other people. They would say this, and I would take it and turn it around a little bit, and that's the story. That's something that people greet me with all the time. They'll see me and they'll say, "Hey, Danny, move your fanny," or "Hey, Danny, have you moved my fanny?" Okay. When we first debuted that on the radio, it was kind of a mixed reaction.
Danny moves your fanny. What a way to start your day. WKBW.
Tommy Calandra was the guy who wrote that and recorded it for me, and it became a real emblem of my show.
Dan Neaverth is everybody's best friend. If you know Dan Neaverth, you're a friend of his. I don't know, I've never had anybody talk down about Dan Neaverth.
He was very, very clownish, but funny. Funny.
The only ones that have ever spoken negatively about Dan Neaverth are people that have beaten him in the ratings, which means nobody. Nobody.
You know, Danny would take ordinary things and make them funny. he would see things the way that they are not seen with the ordinary eye. He had a special eye.
So that's Dan Neaverth. That's Dan Neaverth, and I'm glad he's my friend, and it always will be.
The way I got into television was kind of interesting. Tommy Shannon was doing a dance party show, similar to the one that was on the national TV with Dick Clark. And it was very good. And Tommy, good-looking guy, kids loved him, especially the girls. And Tommy was called up to serve our country. So they asked me if I would fill in until Tommy came back. So I said, yeah, I'll be on TV. That's good. Part-time thing. So I go over to do the show, and I did 2 of them. And then the show was canceled. They then thought, well, maybe we can use Dan for something else. Dave Thomas was leaving Channel 7 to go to the affiliate in Philadelphia, a much bigger job. So they approached me. Phil Buth, the general manager, kind of liked me. And he said, we'd like you to do Dialing for Dollars as a co-host and the noon weather. Well, our general manager at the radio station didn't like that idea. He thought that if I did 2 of those things, I would lose interest in the radio show. And so they compromised. So I didn't do Dialing for Dollars. I did The Weather Outside on Channel 7.
First question, of course, will there be school for the kids tomorrow? Buffalo public and Catholic schools are closed tomorrow.
And it was a good run. I did that for a long time. When I left Channel 7 to go to Channel 2 to do Nearly Noon, my contract stipulated, as all of my contracts had up to that point, the exact times that I would work. I was working from 11:30 till noon, doing the show. Of course, you do other preparation, but that's what the contract said. So when Channel 2 was sold, after about a year and a half of my doing the show, they came and said, we're canceling Nearly Noon.
I'm Dan Neaverth, and we thank you for joining us on the very last edition of Nearly Noon.
And we'll reassign you, because you have a contract. I said, well, read the contract. It says I work from 11:30 till noon.
And I want to talk to you about the Channel 2 Danny Neaverth going away party.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You didn't get an invite?
So for the next 2.5 years, every day, come over from my radio show to Channel 2, put my feet up on the desk, read the Buffalo News, which was a lot thicker than now, right? It's about like that. And I would then leave at noon and say, hey, guys and gals, I'll see you tomorrow at 11:30. I did a lot of TV commercials during my career. And the big ones, of course, would be Bell's.
Another way that Bell's is consumer-wise for the wise consumer.
And the Value Home Centers.
I'm going incognito to one of Value's many convenient locations.
Did them for a long period of time. And eventually, I met up with a guy from one of the agencies at a party. And he looked me in the eye and he said, you know, I got to tell you something. You are overexposed. I said, I got all my clothes on. What are you talking about? And he said, no, you're on TV too much. I said, what do you mean too much? He said, well, I was considering using you for a commercial, but I got to thinking, you're on with so many other commercials, people wouldn't really pay much attention to you. So I was overexposed. But the good thing was it helped pay for some college educations. Phil Buth was the general manager at Channel 7, and I think anybody who worked for him would say, wow, he was a great guy. He was one of the best. Well, he went to work for ABC, which was part of the company that we worked for in Buffalo. ABC, Disney, they all got together, and he was in charge of their morning programming. And he did that for a couple of years. He contacted me and he said, how would you like to come down to New York City and do the weekend weather on ABC Network? And I thought, wow, a network. Me, Buffalo, New York, Dan Neaverth, ABC Network. And then I mulled it over and I talked to Marie about it. And we decided no, because then I would be doing like 7 days, traveling a lot, and how would this affect my life here in Buffalo? And so I decided, no, I don't think I'm going to take it. Thank you, Phil. And I sometimes wonder what would have happened, but I know it turned out really good for me staying here.
I don't think they understand how much of a family man he is. I'll tell you a story that's absolutely true, and if this doesn't say what a family man he is, I don't know. I was working for NBC in San Francisco. I was programming a station for them, and suddenly I was called to New York. Now, I didn't know why, because they didn't have anything special going on in New York, but they summoned me, so I had to go to 30 Rock. Here I am at one of the biggest corporations in broadcasting, and I have a blank check to get Dan Neaverth to talk to them about coming to work in Chicago.
WKQX, Chicago 101.
So we start talking. I go set up an arrangement for a nice dinner, and we start talking about what it would be like to be in different markets. And when the word Chicago came up, a lot of money there, a lot of prestige there, and I tried to get him to say that, yeah, that would be interesting, that he would talk to them. I didn't say that, okay? But when I said to him, by the way, I have a blank check from NBC to get you to come to Chicago. A blank check. I've never heard of that. I've never seen it. I've never done it. I never heard of it. So the next day, called him. We met for breakfast. I told him, have you made up your mind? I hope you got an answer that's positive for me. He said, yeah, Maria and I talked about it, and we're very happy that my name would come up, but we're not interested. I said, why would you not be interested in a major check from a major player? And he said, because of the boys. He said, Maria and I wanted them to be educated in Buffalo. We knew the people that were teaching them. We knew their friends, and we want to keep it that way. Now, there aren't many broadcasters that I know that would give up a blank check to NBC. You are no questions asked, but he did.
One of the interesting things of working at WHDT was the fact that some people thought that I used my ability, my power, whatever you want to call it, to get my whole family to work there. The truth is, they all worked there before I came there.
On one hand, I was, running the sales department of a radio station, and then on the other hand, I was doing a character in the morning.
The Deadhead is here. Welcome to the program, Deadhead.
It's a sharp-looking tie you got there, Sardo. What, really?
You like that?
What, did you go to Herb Tarlick's garage sale?
P.J. Fox, who is Dan Jr.'s wife, okay? She had worked at those stations for almost 15 years before I got there.
People used to say, oh yeah, he got them all their jobs. I was like, wait a minute, I was here way before any of them.
It wasn't a nepotism thing at all. They earned their positions, all of them.
You're listening to Oldies 104. I'm Dan Neaverth. Let's talk about sports. And Dan Neaverth Jr. is here. The Sabres finish on a winning note.
Sports Shorts, the Sabres and the regular season on an upbeat note.
A lot of people think he came to the radio station and then the rest followed. But I actually had a phenomenal opportunity to work with Sandy for about 4 years. And then Sandy moved on and they hired Dad.
I signed a contract with WHDT and I got a $4,000 bonus. I couldn't believe it. I don't believe anybody in broadcasting in Buffalo has ever received a signing bonus. You're lucky to get a good contract.
Just trying to be the best person you possibly can, of just, again, treating people like you want to be treated.
Me and all my brothers, I think the quick wit, the one-upsmanship.
Probably being a little smartass, we'll say. Coming off with a quick answer. We came from an extremely stable upbringing, and the only expectations my parents ever had of us was to do exactly that, to be good fathers, good husbands.
Oh, he loves the kids, and the kids all love him. Papa, he's Papa to them. And just, they remember all the silly things that were done through the years, and the Easter egg hunts and all the fun stuff, the parades on the 4th of July.
They love Great Grandpa. They love Great Grandpa. And I'll actually, when my dad's here, I'll leave the room so that he is now in a position where he has to interact. He's the same grandfather to them as he was a father to us. He's instilling the same things in the kids, and they love being around him. They just love having him around.
This is where I grew up, and she lived about 2 blocks down there on Littell. She would walk by every day going to South Park High School, and I would be going to Bishop Timon High School. I never saw her until years later. At the corner, there's a delicatessen, and she was standing there with her good friend, Dorothy, and they were eating ice cream. And I just casually walked by them, and I said, "Hey, that looks good. Could I have some of that?" And she held out her ice cream cone, and I took a little bite out of it, and kind of took a bite out of my heart. That was the beginning. That's when I first met Marie, the love of my life. That I spent 59 years with her. She was super special, terrific wife, and an amazing mother with 4 boys.
The thing that comes to mind most about my mom was any holiday. We'd get in the car, any needy family that my mom knew about, we'd drive up, she'd leave the car on the road, she'd hand me an envelope and say, "Go knock on the door and just give them the envelope," and walk away.
They called her Kojak because the famous detective on TV, Kojak, could solve all the crimes, and Marie could solve all of their crimes.
She was the disciplinarian. She was she used to say originally, "Oh, wait till Dad gets home." We'd go up to our room, and then Dad would come home and, threaten us with the wooden spoon. But we weren't really scared of Dad. You did not want to mess with Mom. When Mom spoke, you listened.
She was also the financier of the Neaverth family.
If my dad had ever gone into the local bank to cash one of his checks, they would have detained him because there's no way that signature matched Dan Neaverth's signature. And that was because as the chief banker, my mother did all of the banking, including his signature, on just about every single check.
We traveled a lot, and then it got to a point where she said, "It seems like we've been everywhere, and you just love to travel. Go."
My mom wasn't a traveler. She didn't like traveling at all, but my dad just loves it. And he always exposed us to the really important stuff, not just, like I said, going somewhere and laying at the beach. That was never something we did.
This was one of the trips that I took with Sandy Beach and his group and his lovely wife. And we're at the concert, and they were playing this love song. And everybody got up, and they're doing this kind of thing, singing the song, and everybody was in a great mood, and I was crying, and because I missed her. She hadn't passed at that point, so when I got home, I was anxious to tell her about what happened, and so I was out on our deck, and I found a video of that song, and I was playing it, and so I wanted to take the video in. I took my video, and I was going to show her this song that we had talked about, and she was gone. Who am I? Just a guy who was so fortunate to have a fantastic family, fantastic wife, obviously, and a career that I would never have dreamed I could have. I'm just a kid from Keppel Street.
Shy, see you later, okay? You're going to call me, Shy. Call you later. You coming by? I'm going to call you. I'll see you later. All right. Come here. I love you. How are you? You're beautiful. I'll see you later, okay? Call me later. All right. What time? About 6 o'clock. Don't forget to call.
Come on, Jake. Ah, good boy.